This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and now for something a little bit different, at least for those of us in the United States. This is the Oppo Find X2 Pro. Oppo is the company from which OnePlus sprang, so they do some pretty cool stuff. They've been the first in some things like pop-up cameras and all that. So this time they're totally going after the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. We've got triple cameras here. We have a 13 megapixel 10x hybrid optical / digital zoom camera on board. We have a 6.78 inch 120 hertz variable refresh display with 240 hertz response time for touch. So that means it feels very responsive, just like the Galaxy. That's a lot of fancy stuff. And the finishes are pretty cool too. You got two options here. So this is what's called vegan leather, and well, I like it. So vegan leather means it's not really leather. So I think it's a kind of microfiber based material. And the other one is ceramic, kind of black. We're going to look at it now. This is pretty much a thick boy kind of phone. It's big like the S20 Ultra and weighs almost 220 grams. It's going to depend which of the two finishes that you get. The display sides are curved, which looks very pretty, but it's one of the more dramatic curves like we used to see. And I personally prefer less of a curve because of accidental touches and less edge distortion on the screen. So the high-end specs don't stop with that nice big fast refresh OLED display or the triple camera setup that we're going to get into. Believe me, we will. But you've got a Snapdragon 865 processor on board, 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. There is no micro SD card slot, so that will be the amount of storage available to you. Nice stuff. You've got 5G on board, but here's the trick with that one. Look at the bands. I'll put them right on the screen for you right now, and look up for your carrier and your provider, particularly in the United States. The 5G does not cover the high band millimeter wave, which is kind of weird because this year's flagship level phones are covering low, mid, and the high band millimeter wave. That's the ultra fast but not much available bands. And when it comes to band N71, for example, that T-Mobile uses for their 600 megahertz, slightly faster than 4G stuff, that's not covered on this. It looks like one of AT&T's potential 5G bands is covered, and Sprint is a 2500 megahertz band, which will soon also be T-Mobile's. So for a super expensive flagship, that's 1,200 euros and should be about that much in dollars as well. You'd kind of like to have all those bands covered. That's the hurt. Let's get that out of the way right now. But if you're happy with 4G LTE, there's plenty of bands covered there, as you saw in the graphic that I provided. So you're good to go with that. And given the speed of the 5G rollout and how much not faster it is, unless it's that millimeter wave, which is really just very small spots are covered, I'll leave it up to you as to how important you think that is. Other features include IP68 water resistance. How that works with the microfiber back, I don't know, which I suppose is a washable kind of material, but I'm not sure I would put this under the sink and give it a big scrub. But if you go with the ceramic, hey, why not? Especially in these times where we want to keep everything so clean that we handle. It does not have wireless charging on board, but it has about everything else you could ask for. You've got NFC. You have a 32 megapixel selfie camera that actually does a pretty good job on here. The usual dual band fast Wi-Fi. You get the idea. Full featured phone. And this versus the S20 Ultra, here's the thing that kind of sets it apart. It still uses phase detection autofocus, not dual pixel autofocus, and that's true of the S20 Ultra, which had focusing problems. There has been an update that did help the Ultra, but I'm not sure it's completely all the way there where we want it to be. But this one focuses just fine. And we have a pre-release phone, so it will only go up from here. We've already gotten one update. Yes, Oppo does put out OS updates, doesn't matter what country you're in. But anyway, the cameras on this really do impress. I was in awe, actually, of the quality of the images. Much is what I hope the S20 Ultra would have done in terms of looking a lot like a digital SLR camera. Very natural tones, very natural colors. It's really good at color, this. And the dynamic range might not be quite as good as Samsung's, but it's pretty good and sophisticated looking stuff. So you have a main 48 megapixel camera and you have a 48 megapixel ultra wide. You can see the specs on screen right now. And they're both Sony sensors for those, and it's quite good. And the telephoto lens is actually quite good too. So they call it a periscope. I think they're doing one of the light and mirror tricks like Samsung does. 13 megapixel camera, and they have a fancy marketing name for that, as you would expect. But anyway, it's got 5x optical zoom, very nice, and 10x digital. And yes, you can go all the way out to 60x digital, much like with the Ultra. You can go out to 100x, and in either case, you really wouldn't want to do that unless you're really trying to see something that's very hard to see on the top of the Statue of Liberty or something like that. But The 5X is optical and it's beautiful looking stuff. The 10X is pretty good. It's a hybrid, so much like with the Samsung, you'll see a little degradation of color. The only thing I've noticed when using the hybrid optical zoom going out to 10X is sometimes the exposure is a little weird on it. So they got a little work to do there, but you can see the sample photos that have been running. This is some really good stuff. I have enjoyed this camera more than I expected. The camera has a dedicated night mode, though I actually find it did a fine job without enabling night mode, sometimes better. And it is a good night mode. Sorry I don't have any pictures of that. Thanks to what's going on in the world right now, I couldn't go out into any nightlife hotspots. The rear camera can also shoot 4K video at up to 60 frames per second, and I was also impressed with the quality of that, and the stabilization is pretty good as well. And there's slow motion and the usual other effects that you can do. One thing, there's no 8K video recording, unlike the S20 family of phones from Samsung, but you may feel differently about this, but I don't find that the most useful feature at this point anyhow. Now, the operating system here is called ColorOS, and it's ColorOS 7.1. And I never really much liked ColorOS. It's probably more a cultural thing. It seemed more like something made for China than made for the US or for Europe. And now it's gotten much toned down. I really do like it just fine. It doesn't bother me at all. And their settings and their customizations, like their UltraVision engine, if you want to take 30 or 60 frame per second video you're watching on streaming services and upsample it much like a TV does, you've got that sort of feature. And maybe it makes for a little of the soap opera effect like you see on TVs, but plenty of customization and settings here. It's quite good, and it's all based on Android 10. And their track record for updates software is pretty good, like I said. And it's a full Google experience. I think Oppo's making their big move right now because, number one, they've been successful with their offshoot OnePlus brand, but also because sadly, Huawei, because of politics and all sorts of things like that, can no longer ship the full Google experience with the Google Play Store and all that sort of thing. So they see a chance to move into Europe, into the United States with these phones. And this is a very promising start. The phone has stereo speakers, the usual one at the bottom, one in the earpiece, and my God, it's loud. I was surprised, and pretty full too. So nice multimedia experience, and this is a gorgeous display. That display mate rated quite highly, so it certainly is great for content consumption. The phone has a 4260 milliamp battery, which is not bad, but the Ultra does have, the S20 Ultra, a 5000 milliamp battery, so it gets shown up a little bit, but that's still a pretty good capacity battery. We've been testing it on 4G here in the United States, and it's an all-day phone, I'll say that, about 5.5 to 6 hours of screen on time. If you do have 5G coverage, that might go down, it tends to consume more power. It comes with a 65-watt fast charger, the Super VOOC, they call it, charger. And that's pretty wild because, most Ultrabooks only come with a 45-watt charger. So it can do a full charge in just over a half an hour, like 38 minutes. That is mental. So it kind of makes up for no wireless charging there because it does not take long if you have a little juice or a battery pack to top this thing up. Certainly a battery pack's not going to be as fast as using the 65-watt charger, but still you get the idea. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.